The phone rang just as Daniel Harper was helping his 8-year-old daughter Lily finish her math homework. It was nearly 9 at night, and the tiny apartment echoed with the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Daniel frowned at the unfamiliar number but answered anyway. "Hello?" A trembling woman's voice came through the speaker. "Please, don't hang up. I know you're probably busy, but I don't know who else to call." Daniel hesitated. "I think you have the wrong number." Silence followed for a moment before the woman whispered, "Maybe, but could you stay on the line for just 1 minute? I don't want to be alone." Something in her voice stopped him from ending the call. Daniel had spent the last 6 years raising Lily alone after losing his wife to cancer. He knew what loneliness sounded like. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, exhausted, and desperate. "I'm here," he said gently. The woman let out a shaky breath. "If you believe kindness still exists in this world, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe." Stories like this remind us that one unexpected moment can change 2 lives forever. "My name is Evelyn," she finally said. "Tonight was supposed to be my engagement party." Daniel looked toward Lily, who smiled sleepily before walking to her bedroom. "What happened?" he asked softly. "I found out my fiancé wasn't marrying me because he loved me. He only wanted my family's fortune." Daniel closed his eyes. "I'm sorry." He laughed when I confronted him, Evelyn continued, her voice cracking. "He said no one could ever truly love someone born into billions because everyone eventually wants something." Daniel leaned against the kitchen counter. "He's wrong. You don't even know me. I don't have to." His words say more about him than about you. For the first time, Daniel heard a faint laugh. "You really answered a wrong number, and you're still talking to me." Sometimes wrong numbers become the right conversations. The silence that followed felt different now, not empty but comforting. They talked for nearly an hour. Evelyn confessed she was the only daughter of one of America's wealthiest families. Since childhood, every friendship, every relationship, every invitation had carried hidden motives. Daniel never once asked the name of her company or how much money she had. Instead, he asked what made her smile. "What did you dream about before business meetings replaced birthdays?" She thought carefully. "I wanted to become a children's book illustrator." "So why didn't you?" "My father believed it wasn't practical." Daniel smiled sadly. "My daughter still believes every drawing belongs on the refrigerator. Maybe she's smarter than all of us." Evelyn laughed again, this time sincerely. When the conversation ended, she thanked him. "I don't even know your last name." "You don't need to. I'd like to repay you." "You already did." "How?" "You laughed." The call ended. Daniel assumed he'd never hear from her again. The next morning, life returned to normal. He packed Lily's lunch, dropped her at school, and headed to work repairing elevators across the city. Around noon, his supervisor rushed toward him. "Daniel. There's a woman asking for you outside." Confused, Daniel stepped into the lobby. Standing there was Evelyn. She wore simple jeans and a white sweater instead of the glamorous dresses magazines usually showed heiresses wearing. She looked nervous. "You found me?" She smiled sheepishly. "I had the phone company trace the number." "I hope that's not too strange." "A little. I deserve that." Daniel laughed. "What brings you here?" She held up a paper bag. "You mentioned your daughter likes blueberry muffins." "You remembered?" I remembered everything. Inside the bag were 3 warm muffins and a handwritten note. "For Lily, the little girl whose father reminded a stranger that kindness still exists." Daniel looked at the note quietly. "You really didn't have to." "I wanted to." Just then Lily's school called. She had developed a fever. Daniel apologized and prepared to leave work early. Without hesitation Evelyn asked, "May I come with you?" He looked surprised. "Why?" "I've attended board meetings with hundreds of executives." She smiled sadly. "I've never helped take care of a sick child." An hour later the three of them sat together in Daniel's small apartment. Lily rested on the couch wrapped in a blanket while Evelyn carefully placed a cool cloth on her forehead. "You've never done this before," Daniel teased. "It shows." "You folded the towel into a perfect square." Lily giggled weakly. "You talk funny." Evelyn burst into laughter. "I've been told that before." As the afternoon passed, something remarkable happened. The billionaire heiress forgot about stock prices. The exhausted single father forgot about unpaid bills. And a little girl simply enjoyed having another caring adult beside her. When Lily woke from a nap, she handed Evelyn a box of crayons. "Draw with me. I'm not very good anymore. My daddy says you get better by trying." Evelyn stared at Daniel. He shrugged. "I may have said that once." She opened the crayon box. For the next 30 minutes she sketched a butterfly while Lily colored flowers around it. Daniel watched quietly from the kitchen doorway. The woman who had sounded completely broken the night before now smiled like someone rediscovering a forgotten piece of herself. When evening arrived, Evelyn prepared to leave. At the door she paused. "Daniel?" "Yes?" "You never asked how much money I have." "It doesn't matter." "You never asked where I live." "It doesn't matter." "You never asked if knowing me could change your life." Daniel smiled warmly. "It already did." She looked puzzled. "How?" "You reminded my daughter, and me, that even people who seem to have everything still need someone willing to listen." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. "No one's ever said something like that to me." Daniel gently replied, "Sometimes the greatest gift isn't solving someone's problems. It's making sure they don't face them alone." Before stepping outside, Evelyn looked back one last time. "I called the wrong number." Daniel smiled. "No. You called exactly the person you needed." Months later, Evelyn quietly funded a children's art center in Daniel's neighborhood, not in her family's name, but in honor of one unexpected phone call that changed her heart. She often visited to draw with the children, while Lily proudly introduced her as the lady who accidentally became family. And every time Daniel's phone rang from an unknown number after that, he answered with the same simple kindness, because he had learned that sometimes destiny doesn't knock on the front door. Sometimes, it simply dials the wrong number. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who believes that compassion can begin with the smallest act. And before you go, tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when a stranger's kindness changed your life forever? 6 months after that unexpected phone call, Daniel no longer thought of Evelyn as the heiress. To him, she was simply Evelyn, the woman who laughed too hard at Lily's jokes, burned pancakes every Saturday morning, and somehow managed to turn an ordinary afternoon into an unforgettable memory. The children's art center she had quietly opened was flourishing. Every weekend, dozens of children from struggling families gathered there to paint, draw, and dream. Evelyn refused to hang her family's name on the building. Instead, above the entrance were simple words: "Every masterpiece begins with someone who believes in you." One rainy afternoon, Daniel was repairing an elevator downtown when his phone buzzed. It was Lily. "Daddy." "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "It's Miss Evelyn." Daniel's heart skipped. "What happened?" "She's crying." Without another question, Daniel rushed to the art center. When he arrived, he found Evelyn sitting alone in one of the classrooms, staring at a drawing Lily had made months earlier. Tears silently rolled down her cheeks. Daniel quietly sat beside her. "You called?" She nodded. "I didn't know who else to call." He smiled gently. "I'm glad you called the right number this time." She laughed through her tears before holding out an envelope. My father. Daniel looked at it. He wants me to become CEO next month. That sounds like good news. It should be. She paused. But there's a condition. Daniel already knew he wasn't going to like the answer. He says I have to close this place. She looked around the colorful room filled with tiny chairs, paintbrushes, and unfinished drawings. He called it a waste of money. Daniel remained silent. He says investors don't like charity projects that don't make profits. She swallowed hard. If I refuse, he'll remove me from the company. For several seconds neither of them spoke. Finally Daniel asked one simple question. What do you want? She answered immediately. I want this place. Daniel smiled. Then you've already made your decision. But I'd lose everything. He gently shook his head. No. She looked confused. You'd lose money. He pointed toward the walls covered with children's artwork. This is everything. The next morning Evelyn walked into the company's boardroom. Executives from around the country filled the enormous conference hall. Her father sat at the head of the table. Have you reconsidered? He asked. She calmly placed her resignation letter in front of him. I won't close the art center. The room fell completely silent. Her father stared at the paper. You'd walk away from billions? I'd rather lose wealth than lose myself. One director whispered, she's making the biggest mistake of her life. Another quietly replied, or the bravest. Within hours, business news exploded across television and social media. Heiress rejects family fortune to protect children's art center. Nobody expected what happened next. Parents whose children attended the center began sharing their stories online. One little boy had spoken his first full sentence while painting there. A teenage girl had earned an art scholarship. Another child battling cancer smiled for the first time in weeks after joining Evelyn's classes. Millions watched the videos. Donations poured in from ordinary people around the world. Artists volunteered. Teachers offered free lessons. Within a month, enough support had arrived to expand the center into 3 neighborhoods. Daniel stood beside Evelyn during the opening ceremony of the newest building. You see, he whispered. What? You never really lost everything. She looked at the crowd of laughing children. I gained something I never knew money couldn't buy. Just then Lily ran toward them holding a folded piece of paper. I made this. Evelyn opened it. It showed 3 people holding hands beneath a bright rainbow. One was Daniel. One was Lily. The third was Evelyn. Across the top, written in colorful crayon, were the words, families don't always start the same way. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She knelt beside Lily. Can I keep this forever? Lily nodded enthusiastically. You already are. Daniel looked at the 2 of them and quietly smiled. Months later, Evelyn received another phone call from an unknown number. She answered. A frightened young woman whispered, I'm sorry. I think I dialed the wrong number. Evelyn smiled as tears formed in her eyes. No. She glanced toward Daniel and Lily, who were laughing together across the room. I think you called exactly the right person. And just as Daniel had once done for her, Evelyn stayed on the line, not because she knew the stranger, but because she understood that sometimes a single conversation can rescue a heart before anyone else even realizes it's breaking. The kindness that began with one mistaken phone call had become a chain of hope, proving that love is not always found through perfect plans. Sometimes it arrives through unexpected moments, ordinary people, and the simple choice to answer when someone needs a voice on the other end of the line.